Okay, great. So I met you about 10 years ago.
Isn't that insane to realize that, Ellie? That's like that doesn't even seem possible, but you're right. That because
Well,
that's when I was living in Westport with Mia and she was in kindergarten. That's crazy.
yes, and I met her, and we had a friend in common, and you were doing Reiki and your services. I think you were practicing them at
Yeah,
that
yeah,
stage.
yep. I just gotten initiated. That was about the time I had come back from Peru and got initiated. So I was raking anything and everything that wouldn't crawl away from me.
Right.
Yeah.
And I imagine your practice has deepened greatly since then. Can you tell me about that first?
Okay, so yeah, so Reiki that I came to by accident. It's funny. I've always had this feeling that there was something in my hands that was meaningful from time as a little kid because I used to the neighbor kids used to treat me like I was a magic trick, and they would say, "Hey, if Cara puts her hands on you, she'll make things go away." So the first time I recognized that I was doing that was for people was when I was about 5, and a neighbor friend that we had, really close family friends, were next door neighbors. This guy used to get migraines all the time, and my friends were like, "Oh my God, let Cara. Cara will make it go away." And so the dad was looking at me like you could tell he was like, "Oh, okay." Like we're gonna play a childhood game right now. She's gonna put her magic hands on me, and he was like kind of placating me, like, "Sure, go ahead and do that." And I put my hands on him, and I just knew instinctively if I pushed love through my hands, it would make the pain go away. And the migraine went away instantly. And it was so mind blowing to that guy that he looked over at me and he was gobsmacked. And he was like, what the hell did you just do? And how did you do that? He was really freaked out. His intensity and his reaction to me made me freaked out in terms of maybe what I did was wrong or bad or weird. So after that, I remember being a little bit more on the down low about what I could do with my hands. Fast forward in time, I'm in my 20s and I'm still feeling that thing like something's coming through here. I want to do something with it. So I got certified in massage therapy, and I was doing massage therapy for a while, and I was loving it. I mean, it was great, and my business was starting to thrive. And then I ended up going to Peru, and I started doing massage therapy in Peru as a form of income as I was living there. And there was this shaman guy down there. He was so funny. I met him on accident, and then we became fast friends. And then I gave him my business card for massage therapy in case people came into his shop and they needed massage therapy after being on the Inca Trail. I would try to generate business. But he kept sending me these people that didn't need massage therapy. He was sending me people that were really emotionally damaged, like ridiculously emotionally damaged, right? And he would call and say, "I'm sending this person over and they need this, this, and this." And I was like, I don't really do that. I do massages. And he's like, "No, Carrie, you do that." And I was like, "No, I don't." He's like, "Yeah, you do." And I'm like, "Quit sending these people to me." And he's like, "No, this is your gift. You need to do this." And it made me angry. But they would come, and it would be half the time they would be on the table, and the other half of the time I would talk to them. And I just had all this stuff coming through me, and I didn't think anything of it because it was innate to me. Fast forward a little while later, my girlfriend that I connected with in Peru, who was my bestie at the time, had come to California. I'd moved back from Peru because I'd given birth to Mia, and I was living in Southern California. And she came down to do a ceremony, and she's like, "Kara, I got to show you this new thing. I just learned. You're going to love it." And I'm like, "Oh gosh, show me this new thing." She called it Reiki, and I'd never heard of that word before. And I was like, "Wow, this sounds cool." She put me on a table, and the experience that I had was so otherworldly, transformational, and mind blowing that I was like, "What the hell did you just do?" And that's what I need to do. Like, whatever you just had come through your hands, that's me. And she said, "Well, you got to meet my teacher," and he's Peruvian. So within less than a year, I'd flown back to Peru, and I was in Peru for almost 2 months studying with him Reiki level 1, Reiki level 2. He was intense. He was like, oh my God, this guy lived in India for like 10 years, and he was somebody that was so intense and serious about what he did that when I came to him to learn Reiki from him, he actually interviewed me from the standpoint of, "You're not worthy. You proved to me that you're worthy to be my student." I mean, this was a very intense person. His mindset was, Reiki is not something you do, it's who you are. And if you don't take this in as a way, as a transformational way of being, I don't want to have you be my student. So I was training with him for anywhere between 4 to 6 hours a day for almost 6 weeks, just for level 1 and 2. Here in the States, they throw level 1 and 2s out like chiclets,
Right.
like an hour session or a weekend thing, and now you've got Reiki. And I'm
Right.
sitting in this incredible dimensional training camp. And I was grateful for it in a way I can't begin to explain to you, because it really um, sanctified the process and the healing. And it really did embody in me to such a degree that after I got my initiations, I didn't go out and charge money for it. I didn't practice it as a client-based business for a year. I literally took a year and just strengthened myself internally, growing that energy frequency and that connection. And then after that, I began doing the Reiki. And the thing that was beautiful about what he taught me was nothing that comes through you that's coming from that higher place is wrong. You may not understand in the moment from your personality what's going on, but if it's coming through that throughput, it's what it's supposed to be. So when I first started doing healing sessions on people, I had sound that would come through my throat. I would make sounds, and now I recognize it as a vibrational attunement. But at the time, I didn't understand what was going on. So the Reiki modality that he taught me was a foundational platform. And then from there, my personality, my experiences, my awareness, my Cara-ness expanded that and moved through it such that it became a very unique practice to me. And so now when I meet other people that do any kind of energy healing, I recognize us all as snowflakes. We all come from the same matter, but we're so individually unique in our expression of that, that it makes it exciting. So you could go to a number of Reiki healers and have, a baseline of the same thing. You're getting energy healing, but the expression of it could be very different. And so now you can see that, going to multiple healers is beautiful, because where you're at in that moment, where they're at that in that moment is a cosmic match. And you may need that specific thing in order to help you. So I get super excited. I was like, oh, when you do healing work, you know, do you try to make it like, oh, you can only come to me, or I'm the one that knows everything? And I'm laughing. I'm like, God, no. I tell people, investigate all, go everywhere you can. And the one thing I always tell people is, if everybody in the world at least got initiated into Reiki level 1, I have a profound belief that we would be able to come to world peace. Why? Because Reiki 1 is about bringing in higher dimensional frequency consciously into your own vibration of personality and healing yourself. It makes meditation an easier experience. It makes your frequency and communion with the world around you more felt. It makes you a more compassionate individual towards yourself and others. It helps you see more clearly, more in depth in terms of all the things that are going on for you. So I consider Reiki, it's a weird word. It's Japanese, and it sounds like it's something outside of yourself. But if you could really boil it down, it is a divine connection with higher source that you're consciously, intentedly directing towards your own multidimensional work, and it flows through everything. There's lots of healing modalities like that. Reiki is just the one that I gravitated towards.
And do you think most people gravitate towards Reiki because they know they can be a healer somehow, but they haven't quite put their finger on it?
I think that to them, when they look at it as a modality, it resonates with a feeling that they have that something higher is flowing through them, and a feeling that their hands are active, that there's something alive in their hands. I've worked with so many people over the past decade, and oftentimes when they ask me, should I get initiated into Reiki, they preface that by telling me there's something there. Like, I feel like I have something here. I feel like and they might point to their heart. I feel like there's something here. And I will say, oh, most definitely. Go. But there is lots of different ways that you could expand that energy work. I just think Reiki is I love the formulation of it. I love the formula of it. I love the fact that it gives you a very grounded baseline that's very textural in terms of actualizing that, because they use symbols, and there's a pattern, and there's a way. Sometimes people, when they go in to do Reiki and they go into to learn in the classes, they get stifled, or they feel stifled by the formulation, the framework of it. Because if you learn from a very adept Reiki instructor, they're going to be very specific about follow exactly what I tell you to do, how I tell you to do it. Why? Because you have to embody all of that in the almost on a cellular level before you can kind of play jazz with it. It's
Totally
like if somebody wants to be a
the same
jazz trumpet player, they have to learn the basics and they have to get it so innate in them that the disconnection or the flow of that comes from that deeper foundational. So what I tell people is, if you're going to go and practice or train with Reiki, don't let the rigidity of the structure minimize your expression of it. Just practice within that until it becomes so innate in you that it becomes you. And from there, more of yourself moves through the Reiki.
That's
But yes, I do feel people are attracted to Reiki because they feel that there is sensitivity in their energy experience in their hands, and they
Mhm.
want to figure out what to do with that.
Very interesting. When I was a child, my hands would ache and they would ache, and I would tell my mom, my hands ache. And I think when I was excited or something, they would just ache and they would almost be cold or something. And it was so strange, and she didn't know what to think of it. And I always wondered what that was. And one day it stopped happening, but I've always wondered what that was. So it may be that I was a sensitive person, and this was one clue.
Absolutely, Ellie. I wouldn't doubt it for a minute. Honestly, you are such a soulful, beautiful, sensitive woman. And you are always seeking. You're seeking yourself. That's been my perception of you since I met you, is you have been seeking, even when you were under the most incredible emotional, mental, and physical duress. You were always trying to look for a higher place and use that as your north star to find your way in, knowing that there was something richer going on for you. So that only comes from somebody that's already aligned to something higher. So I absolutely believe that you are naturally gifted in transmuting higher levels of energy through your field. The thing about following the path of a healer is that you will always have experiences in your life that are intense, challenging, overwhelming, maybe you could describe it as. Why? Because you are the baseline. And whatever you are challenged with in your personal world, that you are then on the path to heal for yourself, you'll notice that you have an affinity towards that level of healing for other people. So everything you do for you, you do for everybody else. So there is no healer that has a perfect life. If anything, you'll hear story after story after story where they will tell you, like, yeah, dude, it's kind of been a little bit of an intense ride, a little bit of a Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. The ride doesn't necessarily change as you get more adept. I think what changes is your perception of it.
Mhm.
Then it's like you end up becoming of it, and you don't have the same perception that you did in the past.
Mhm.
Um,
More open to learning from it, knowing you'll learn from it.
yeah, you're not looking at it, you're not coding it necessarily as negative or positive. Everything becomes an awakening. It really does become you waking up from the dream. I mean, that's really what it is waking up from the dream. And then what you're endeavoring to do as a healer is you're endeavoring to help others wake up from their dream, right? To wake up and realize that they're dreaming, and to share with them how they can transform themselves in that way with that specific ability. So, a healer doesn't actually move anything in anybody else. All they act as a reflection of the highest that that person can achieve in that moment. They act as a beautiful mirror of something more. But ultimately, the individual is the person that's doing the work. So,
So what I was going to ask you is how you ground yourself. You said Reiki was grounding, but are
yep.
there other ways that you're able to ground yourself so that you're not
Yeah.
in the
Yes. Oh my God, girl, you've asked the right question. This year, this 2020 has been a year of really uprooting a lot of people, obviously, in multiple ways. So grounding, even more now than ever before, it almost has to be incorporated as a daily practice, like brushing your teeth. Um, they call it now earthing. That's a very popular term for grounding. What I call grounding, and the most powerful way, in my personal opinion, to ground is to connect yourself with the electrical magnetic field of the Earth Mother. Okay.
Mhm.
because she is such an incredible force field. And you can do that in a lot of different ways. My favorite way to do grounding is to take myself on a morning walk. You could do it in the morning, afternoon, evening. I just prefer morning because it's the beginning of my day. And when I walk, I listen to the sound of thunderstorm and rain. Why? Because I've worked with a lot of sound healers, and they're all telling me that that sound frequency is associated with the root chakra. So that's the baseline. It's a very earthing sound. Okay. So if you put that sound on your ears, and you can go on YouTube and find long clips of thunderstorm and rain. But when you go out and you walk, it's not your time to go off in your brain and figure out what you need to do for that day or try to release emotional congestion. It's actually your time to pull your consciousness very markedly and intently into your physical body. So when you're walking, what you do is you focus your attention on the fact that your feet are touching the ground. You feel that connection. You feel your ankles, your legs, your knees, your hips, your spinal column, your shoulders, your head, your neck. You're looking up and you see there's sky, maybe there's tree, maybe there's bird or animal, or there's another person. And what you're doing in that mindset is you are very much putting your attention and awareness and focus on your physical connection to earth. And in that way, you get very aligned with your body. And that pulls you into yourself. And then it'll help pull more of your conscious attraction and attention toward that energy that's coming up through the earth frequency. What it does is it creates a calming within you. It creates the mind that's fluttering kind of gets a little bit more still. It creates a feeling of a center of gravity that hits right here in the center of your chest. And you get this feeling of being very grateful for being alive, for being in syncopation with that. If you look around at nature, nature doesn't experience anxiety. Nature's not fretting. It's not blown out. Nature is just following this beautiful, incredible pattern. And when you align yourself with that and you become in flow of that, you come back to something that is grounded. So I like doing it again at the beginning of my day because I feel like it sets the tone for me. But it's also very powerful to do at the end of your day. Why? So that when you're moving into the rest of your night and into the sleep pattern, you're in a place where you've released whatever sort of the fray and the chaos of your day is, and you can be very centered so that when you go into dream time, you really are ready to go into a deeper sleep pattern and maybe ready to exalt yourself in learning and connecting and expanding yourself in that dream world. Then when you wake up, you may feel that centeredness again as you start your day. So I'm one of those believers that you are dreaming inside the dream. That is my experience with this lifetime, is that we are in a dream state in the waking world, just as we are in the dream world. It's like a dream within a dream. And that the goal here is to wake up and recognize that you are the dreamer, and you are the one dreaming everything around you. So if you ever get a dream interpretation book, they'll always tell you the same thing. Everything in the dream is you. It's a projection of you. Well, of course, it's your dream. But this waking world is also your dream. Everything in the world around you is a projection of you. Everything. It can only be that. It's a projection of your perception. So grounding yourself before dream time allows you to be more awakened in that state. And that is another world, another realm of awakening or experiencing. So we work out a lot of our lessons in dream time. We wake up to a lot of our higher teachers in dream time, just like we do in this waking world. So when you go into that sleep time in a deeper, more relaxed state, it almost becomes a living, moving meditation.
Yeah. I wonder what you could advise people who don't get good sleep, like new moms who are up through the night for long periods of time.
Yeah. So part of that is chemical. So what I always tell women, if you've gotten a baby and you feel that you can't come down from the ceiling, more than likely your hormones are off. And you can balance out hormones with a very beautiful, fortified, mineral rich a phytonutrient, micronutrient rich diet. So it's a good idea if you're experiencing it to an extreme that you find yourself in front of a really good nutritionist or a naturopath that is really adept at knowing what you need to physically put in the body to balance yourself. Aside from that, any form of meditation before you go to bed, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, is going to, over a time, cumulatively help you go into the deeper part of yourself. A lot of us women take on the role of mothering with an enormous amount of, obviously, responsibility, and also it's not the right word, isn't burden, but there is a lot of that feeling of not wanting to make a mistake, not wanting to do everything right, feeling this sort of gravity of this role that we're here to play. And part of that not sleeping is that anxiety around how are we doing the right thing? And especially as a new mother, it's every day is a new challenge. You're constantly in the realm of, I don't know quite what I'm doing, and I have to learn while I'm moving forward. And it's the role of making mistakes every day and having to forgive yourself of that. So meditation, people take the word meditation like a 4-letter word, and they make a lot of it that doesn't need to be made of it. Meditation is simply, I always recommend new meditators incorporate sound. And when I say sound, don't find music that has words in it. Find sound. It's just tones, it's frequencies. And there's tons and tons and tons and tons of meditation sounds on YouTube and Pandora, Spotify, iTunes. And I say, hey, new mommy, maybe you work with your second chakra, the chakra of emotion and relationships. Maybe you work with your fourth chakra, the chakra of heart. Maybe you work with your fifth chakra, the chakra of communication. But you just find sound that is soothing and opening for you. Go and sample sound online, chakra balancing sound. And within 5 to 10 minutes before you go to bed, you simply sit someplace that feels neutral for you. Neutral means I don't feel a demand being placed on me in this location. If you're in your bed, you'll have a tendency to fall asleep. If you're in the living room, you might have a tendency to try to, oh, I've got to do this. Oh, I've got to do that. If you're in your office, oh my God forbid you're in your office, right? So you want to try to find some place that has some kind of neutrality to its energy, even if it's your closet. You simply close your eyes and you put the sound on your ears, and all you're doing is breathing. And what you're doing is you're taking your focus, instead of your focus being out here, meditation is just putting your focus in here. That's it. You're just changing it from looking out here to looking in here. So when you're listening to the sound, what you're going to do is you're going to drop into your feeling center. Feel what the sound is doing for you. Listen to the sound. Experience that shift as the feeling comes in. Then what I tell people is, hey, try to focus on a color. Why? Because color gives your mind something to do, but the color is also another form of frequency shifting. I usually tell people, ask yourself what color your body needs to feel peaceful. Or what color do you need to feel a sense of harmony within you? Or what color is love? Whatever color comes to mind is perfect. So what you'll do is you'll either try to see if you can visually imagine the color, or you just say in your mind, I'm breathing in the color of whatever color you've chosen. And the way you say, like, for example, I'm breathing in the color of yellow. You don't say that thought like you're trying to create the color of yellow in yourself. You say it as though you already have it. You're just acknowledging its presence. So, for example, I have 2 hands. I have 2 legs. I have blonde hair. I'm breathing in the color of yellow. What will happen is you keep keeping that neutral comment or statement within yourself, and pretty soon the vibrational frequency that equals the color of yellow begins to harmonize in your field, and you go into another state of relaxation. At this point, you are meditating. Congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
You're going within your relaxing self. Even doing this for 5 or 10 minutes at night, within an hour to a half an hour of going to bed, if you do this consistently, just even over a period of 2 or 3 weeks, you are going to recognize a shifting within you, a calming, a balance, that resonance. So meditation is just focusing within and connecting in within yourself to a vibration that is higher than your personality, right? We would call it God or universe or divine or whatever you want to call it. I would call it unconditional love. That's what I feel within the meditative state. Nothing judging you, everything just there for you. Um,
How do you work with the chakras in your technique?
yeah, so Reiki is a form of channeling higher vibrational frequency through the practitioner into the person, to the body. You're using your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual fields as a conduit for a higher frequency. The chakras chakra is the Sanskrit word for wheel. So chakras are portals that are connecting different energy fields and making them all connect into one. That's my understanding of it. Okay. They talk about 7 main chakras. I've heard there's 9. My Reiki teacher basically told me, Cara, every cell in your body is a chakra. It's a conduit of light. And that's really what the chakra is doing. It's being a conduit within portals. So you have different portals or wheels that are connected to different energetic systems, developmental ages. They're connected to organs in your system, because you've got, again, you've got a physical body. That's a vibratory field. It looks like it's solid, but it's matter, but it's actually vibratory. You've got an emotional body. Emotional body doesn't have time. It doesn't know before, now, and in the future. It only knows now. You have a mental body, right? And then you have that spirit or soul. All of these things are interblended. And so the chakras are associated with each one of these fields. And when we have any kind of imbalance, the imbalance could be felt as a physical imbalance and or an emotional imbalance and or a thought imbalance and or a challenge within the spirit, like a karmic thing that you're working through. And so, root, I actually have a beautiful information about all of this on my website, and I'll make sure if you get the link that goes to more on my website, just include it in the video, and they can go down and read, because I love this description that's on the website that I found, because it really does show you the dimensional information that's lying within each of these portals. And you can start to realize, why do I keep having, for example, issues in my uterus? Or why do I keep having stomach problems? Or why do I have this thing with my heart? Or what's going on in my throat all the time? My thyroid's off all the time. Or, why do I always have these weird headaches? Or whatever it may be. And then you can start tracking back when you start looking at what the chakras are aligned to, and you'll go, wow, I really understand now why I need to work and balance out my throat or my 4th chakra. And you'll get why your body needs love in that specific area.
Yes. I remember reading a lot about that with Carolyn Mace.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
I mean, you just go into the Eastern religions, and they have that so incredibly mapped out, and so there's so much awareness that's been brought to us through eons of understanding that you can really, if you want to understand about chakras, there's an enormous amount of really powerful information out there. For
Mhm.
Reiki or energy healing, what you're doing as a practitioner, when you first learn it, you're going to try to balance out the energy frequencies in those. So, but here's how it works. If you've ever had to have braces, your teeth are crooked. And then you get braces and they straighten out your teeth. And then as soon as they take the braces off, what do? They give you a retainer. Why do they want you to have the retainer? Because if you don't keep training those teeth, they're going to go right back to where they were, because the pattern was so embedded that the new pattern hasn't really solidified yet. So when you're doing energy work on somebody as a practitioner, they come and people will say, oh, I'm all off. Help me balance. And you say, great, let's help you balance. And in that moment, they walk out and say, wow, I feel so much better. 2 days later, 3 days later, 2 weeks later, 1 month later, oh, I'm back to where I was. So my thing for people when I work on them is like, hey, listen, a practitioner, a healer is going to start your lawnmower for you, and they're going to start mowing your backyard. But eventually you will have to take the lawnmower and you will have to own doing all of the landscaping yourself. Because if you're not rotating a different thought or emotional frequency through your system, your body is going to go right back into that same alignment. So a practitioner can help you, yes, absolutely. And they can show you and illuminate for you maybe why you may be off. And they can show you what it feels like to be in balance. But eventually you're going to have to go in there and make some shifts and changes within yourself to keep that alignment steady. Otherwise, you'll constantly be going to somebody outside of yourself to get yourself back into alignment.
Do you have a favorite modality of healing that you like to help others with?
Well, I mean, for me, it's the energy work, right? It's Reiki. That's a modality I love. Although I have to tell you, um, you know, if I'd had any kind of alignment with sound healing, I would have gone in that direction as well. I think sound healing, again, because we are vibrational. Sound healing is one of the most profound and direct ways I've seen to help people release really embedded trauma
Mhm.
very fast. It helps release physical trauma, emotional trauma. It helps to open and release the mind, and it definitely touches the spirit. So I always tell people, hey, if you've tried all these other modalities, maybe you started out, and I'm just going to make something up. Maybe you started out and you work with a chiropractor. Oh, they're making a physical adjustment, and then you're like, ah, it's not enough. And you start working with a therapist. Ah, it's just not enough. And then you start working with an alternative healer, like a Reiki practitioner. Okay, well, I've gotten a little further. You're like, I still feel like there's something hidden in there and I can't quite figure out what it is. Sound healing is such a powerful modality. Um, we as people have been taught culturally to scuttle our feelings and to bury and embed trauma because it's almost like it's not socially acceptable to feel pain and to exude that you're hurting. So we've gotten used to just compartmentalizing. And we do it to such an extent that oftentimes we don't even understand how deeply the wound is that cut us. I had this really profound experience with a sound healer about 8 years ago, and that's when I recognized the incredible depth of profoundness that lies in that modality. I went to her just to experience her. I just wanted to have somebody I could refer people to that did sound work. I just wanted to try her out so I could say, hey, I've done sound healing. It's awesome. So I just thought I was going on a ride at Disneyland. I really honestly thought I was just going to enjoy all this beautiful vibration and it was going to be juicy. And she asked me at the front of it, is there anything you want to heal? I'm like, nah, I am so good. You don't even, I'm totally fine. I'm just here to experience it. And she's like, okay. So she starts her sound healing. She's putting Tibetan bowls on me and she's spinning stuff. And within like 10 or 15 minutes, this horrible wailing sound, like erupted out of me like an alien monster. And it was so like insanely intense. I myself am looking at it like as though it's happening to somebody else. I'm like, whoa, where's that coming from? It came from such a depth in me. I couldn't even feel it with my personality. I had absolutely no concept of where this pain was coming from. I just felt it moving out of my chest. Again, like an alien monster. And she kept doing the healing work and it just kept coming in waves. And finally it died down. And when it was out of me, I felt this crystallizing alignment, this harmony in me that just felt like, oh, it's like losing 500 pounds and feeling so clean inside. And she's wrapping up the session. I'm still got my eyes closed and she's telling me, keep your eyes closed. You're almost ready to open them. And she just leans down and whispers to me, by any chance, have you gone through a divorce? And I went, yeah, like 5 years ago. But like me and my ex are bestie friends. Like everything is great. Like, I mean, it wasn't like there was any trauma I could point to in that. And she's like, well, that was all the pain that you had buried from that failure in your, do you see? And it's like, I'm not walking around in pain. I'm not juicing pain on people. It was so deeply buried in my cells. I didn't even know it was there. So when you ask about another modality of healing, I think sound healing for me is is just as powerful as Reiki energy healing, if not more so, because of its vibratory nature. It gets to things that we can't get to consciously. Often it does.
I was wondering about all the pain you might witness from other people and whether that stores within your cells at all.
Yeah, if people come to me and they tell me they're doing healing work with others and they have to decompress after a session, or they feel really heavy after a session, or they're wayward or whatever, I know that that person is not channeling the frequency in the right way. Why? Because again, it's like you're making yourself a portal. And the energy that's moving through that portal is so high in its frequency. You, as the portal, like think of it like a pipe, you're getting such a contact high because that energy is moving through you. And the only reason that I feel someone else's pain is not because I'm going to hold it for them. I feel it so that I can diagnose where is the issue.
Hmm.
And to step into that with them, it helps me hold their hand so they realize they're not alone. Being seen, having your pain witnessed is very powerful in terms of its healing property. But it doesn't come into me in that way. I'm like a window. It just, the energy moves through me this way and then it moves through me that way. So it's like wind through a window. And I really have to thank my Reiki teacher for that learning and that alignment, because he was adamant about that. And I remember earlier in my development, as you know, in this lifetime, I definitely felt like to be effective, you had to feel the other person and carry their burden with you in order to be effective.
Hmm.
But that doesn't actually put you in the right seat of the room. So I would say if somebody feels as though they're getting weighted down by the people they're helping, they need to actually ground more deeply into themselves, into their own energy, and they need to release their fear that they're not enough. I say they have to open themselves up so that that higher energy can come through them. They have to recognize it's not coming from them, it's coming through them.
Hmm.
I typically will tell people, try to create an invocation. It's an invitation with prayer. When you start a healing session with somebody and you're doing healing work on someone, you have an invocation. You open up the space for that higher energy to move through you, and your intention is for that higher energy to move through you. And then when you're done with the healing session, you close prayer. In this way, you are stepping out, your personality is stepping out and stepping to the side, and you're allowing that energy to move through you. And then when the session is done, you move back in. So no, I do not feel weighted. If anything, I feel exalted.
That's a
Yeah.
good sign that you're in the right business.
Yes. And I think that it's not necessarily the sign that you're in the wrong business. If you're weighted by it, it doesn't mean you're doing the wrong thing. It just means that you need to perfect how you use yourself as a tool. The perception there is I have to give of myself in order for me to be of value. And the corrected thought is I allow myself to be a beautiful, powerful conduit of the highest divine energy that moves through my spirit. I am lending my intention for that, but it is coming through me, not of me.
Right. And as
Yeah.
far as everyone having guides, how does that work? Does everyone have a certain amount of guides? Or do you communicate with people's guides? And how are your own guides communicating with you? How does that work?
Yeah. So again, I can only tell you my experience to this point and what I've witnessed when I've worked on people, but there has not yet been a person I've worked on who doesn't have energetic spiritual help. So my experience is that we are all here having a collective journey. There's you're never alone. I've been witnessing that since I was a child, though. So when I was younger, I had the visual, so I would literally see people that were in spirit all the time. I got to the point where I didn't like to do that because it just made me feel like I was abnormal. So I took the visual off and I kept the feeling center. So I can feel the people in the room. I can feel, and I'm so good at feeling now that I can tell you how tall they are, what color hair they have. I can determine all of that information simply by moving my vibration into the field. So I have yet to see anybody in front of me that doesn't have support. Some of the support comes from family, that it's in your genetic line. Some of the support comes from higher beings. Some of the support comes from people in other dimensions. Okay. And I've seen a combination of all. Um, when I do the work I do, I always feel an ushering in of my own people. And I've got a couple of groups that I have been aligned with since I was very young. And they come in, depending on what I'm working on, they will move in and help me energetically do whatever I need to do. And then I also will see others come in for the person that I'm working on. So there's usually a collective. So it's my people, their people, and we're all in alignment for the highest intention. The highest intention is clarity, healing, and love for the person receiving the work.
Do we have a revolving roster of guides and angels, or do we have
sometimes you do. I've seen it that way. Sometimes it's about where you're at developmentally that will usher in a different frequency of person to help you. Again, you have to consider it like a collective. So let's just say, think of it like a school, an elementary school. You have lots of different people in that school that are at different levels of understanding, teachers, okay, principals, and what have you. And when you're in kindergarten, you're going to have a certain group that are attending to you from your understanding at that level. And then as you move up, you may have a different sort that attend to you. This is kind of like what happens when people start escalating in their own evolvement. They're going to call in others. The other thing to remember is that you also have free agency. You're not having something happen to you. You are actually expressing and creating the experience. And so if you make a conscious intention to have connection to higher information, higher guides, and higher wisdom, you're going to call in that experience. I feel as though what is absolutely always the case is that I see family around people. That is always the case. And family it's tied, again, it looks like genetics to me. I see genetic lines coming through. I always see that. Sometimes when I work on people, their higher guide will come through because at that point they are needing that conscious connection to that source. But it's not always the case for me that the guide comes in and makes a very marked, ta-da, I'm in the room. What will happen sometimes is I will be getting the direction and the insight, but that person may not be at the stage where having that very conscious connection to the guide is something that is meaningful for them. So it's really developmental, I think.
That's interesting. And there are always people who have crossed over, like ancestors. There's nobody who's alive currently would show up, right?
I can't tell you how many times I've worked with somebody where a great uncle, great aunt, great grandparent, or even a grandparent that they're like, I never knew that person, or I was adopted. I don't even have any conscious connection to that biological line. And I'm like, well, you may not, but your energy frequency does. And you are vibrating within a karmic pattern that is tied to that. And so and they may say always, oh, that person was a horrible person when they're here on earth. And I'm like, well, they're not in that limited mindset now. They've moved out of this body and out of this learning modality, and they are now able to have a 360, and they're still developing, they're still growing, but they have such compassion now. And a lot of times what I will find is that the person in spirit that connects to them may have the same hiccups that the person in physical does. And therefore there's a karmic connection and their desire to help that person not run the same program. Does that make sense? So sometimes that karmic connection is, or that spirit connection is because they, more than anybody, understand the intricacies of what the person is up against in terms of their challenges. and they want to pay it forward so the person doesn't live the same thing they've lived.
Do you think that genetics has a lot to do with the patterns we live in this lifetime?
I think that we are, again, from my understanding at this state and my own development as a spiritual being, I understand it that we have a physical body that is giving us information, detail, paths, challenges, connected to the emotional body, connected to the mental body. Like there's a synergy between all these fields. And I think that oftentimes we like to, in the spiritual realm, negate the physical body, but we are very much having a physical experience here. So to answer your question short, I will say, yes, I do feel that when we connect to a genetic coding, that we are also now dropped into that as a pattern that gets cleared spiritually.
Right.
That's my understanding.
Interesting. And I was also going to ask you about this COVID. Well, I don't even like to say the word, but the era that we're living in now.
Yeah.
What are the pros and cons, do you think, of this time for people?
Well, I can tell you only from my vantage point, and that is I consider what's happened in the 2020 year to be some of the most profound soil for advancement spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically than has been in my lifetime. I feel that the chrysalis that we've all been wound up in is really there to serve our highest, even though it feels like a complete degradation of our culture, our world, our sense of identity, etc. It's caused incredible of chaos. But I see that only that type of disruption can create its polar opposite. So I look at COVID and this 2020 year as an incredible opportunity for profound evolution of soul. I have had more people come to me this year, that would never come to the type of person I am because they've been buckled to their knees and they have cried uncle and said there has to be something more. And now they're on a trajectory to more. And so I look at it as healing, even though it just seems so opposite of that. I guess what we'll have to do is we'll have to look at this lens or look at this time through another lens forward. We'll have to look at this in 2021 or 2022. We'll have to look back over our shoulder and we'll have to reassess what really happened here. From my vantage point, we have incredible, powerful soil right now to plant some very, very um, profound seeds of light. That's my understanding of
I
it.
have noticed lately that more people have started to talk about finding your soul or your star family more than I've ever heard before. And also, the ET and aliens topic has also become a little more kind of mainstream than I've
Yeah.
ever noticed before. So I think it may somehow run parallel to the last 8 or 9 months. What do you think
The
about that?
Great Awakening. The Great Awakening. Yeah, it looks like to me. I feel like it is the Great Awakening.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for all your strong words. I have a toddler that I can hear already saying hello from inside. So sorry about my mic and the glitches. But it's just really great. I really appreciate connecting with you. It helps me connect more with my own spirit. And I think we all need that right about now.
Ellie, I was so over the moon excited when you sent me that request. I was so happy for you. I was so happy for you that you are putting your energy in this pathway and that you're going to help other people. I think it's amazing. Anything I can do for you, I will do for you on that pathway. I'm very, very happy for you.
Thank you. You've done so much for me. I mean, I've been through a lot in the past 10 years, and I'm certainly living a life that's very good for my own ascension if I apply myself. So I find, speaking with you to be extremely healing for me and a great, rudder of some sort. So you're a very strong healer, and I appreciate what you do very
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very
It's
much.
very kind and very generous. I appreciate that.
And we need to
Sweetheart,
build a community.
Yes, I to all that are watching and listening, pursue your heart. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Pursue your heart. If you follow your heart, you'll never be wrong. So,
I agree with you. Easier said than done sometimes,
yeah.
but I guess we're here. We're here because of love and forgiveness, and we need to learn more about it.
Amen to that, sister.
Thank you so much for your help with this, and
Thank
I'll
you.
connect with you soon. I know.
Okay, sweetheart. Okay, so I will sign off and say sayonara. Hope you have a great day.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.